Hey guys, what is going on? Eric Bach here from Bach Performance. Glad to see you. And today what we're going to do, we're going to talk about one of the biggest, most irritating myths that is made so common in the fitness industry, and that is the belief that you need to eat every 2 to 3 hours in order to stoke your metabolism. Man, I love coffee. So, we have all heard this, right? We've heard if you do not eat consistently, you will not stoke the metabolic fire. Your energy will crash. And if you don't have protein, you are going to be a catabolic mess and you're going to lose all your muscle and it's going to be frustrating. Well, you know what? It's not quite the case. And so many of these myths have been really put out by supplement companies and different people with an agenda looking to try to sell you things, to try to keep you eating and keep you consuming. So, what I'm going to do in a short video, I'm going to break down some of the biggest myths when it comes to eating frequency and instead tell you what you really need to know if you want to be able to lose fat, build muscle, all that great stuff without feeling overwhelmed with all the information coming at you from 87,000 different directions. All right, but before I do that, if you could do me one favor, drop me a like, drop me a flex, or drop me a comment below. I will make sure I get to all those comments either live or directly after, and we'll hit it off, all right? So, let's talk about this belief that you need to eat every 2 to 3 hours in order to stoke your metabolism, to stoke that fire. Otherwise, you're going to go into starvation mode. Really how this came up were there a bunch of studies that were ran back in the day that looked at how often people ate, and then it looked at what their body weight was. So it didn't necessarily look at how often you're exercising, what your sleep habits are, what kind of food you're actually eating. It just more or less looked at this number and said, oh wait, people ate a little bit more, so they weighed less. And this is a classic example of correlation does not mean causation. So, one popular example, breakfast is the most important meal of the day because we did a study and people who ate breakfast tended to weigh less, they tended to have better health. Well, it's not necessarily because there's something magical about breakfast, it's because people who tend to eat breakfast are getting up consistently, they have habits, they're also exercising consistently. So it's not that there's anything magic about breakfast, but we saw that correlation obviously, and then took that information and said, hey, because these people are thinner and they eat breakfast, everybody needs to eat breakfast. Everybody needs to eat frequently. So that's one potential example right there. So really once we look at like a total study, I'll put some of these up for you guys in a bit, but looking at studies that really look at all these different diets and dial into meal frequency, there really is not a benefit to necessarily having breakfast or having more meals frequently throughout the day. So some of these studies themselves look at protein synthesis. So the idea between protein synthesis, the more often protein synthesis is elevated, the more muscle you can build. Great. More muscle means, more muscle, which is great, but more muscle also means a faster metabolic rate. It means you're going to be able to burn fat a little bit faster and just get strong, jacked, lean, and healthy. Sounds perfect. Well, some of these studies looked at protein consumption. So say you had a meal, had a delicious steak like I had last night, and it said protein synthesis tended to decrease 3 hours after eating that meal. So went back down to baseline, therefore you need to eat protein every 2 to 3 hours to keep that up. Well, it's not quite the case because what these folks happen to leave out, well, when we're looking at blood concentrations of amino acids in the bloodstream, they were still elevated 4 to 5 hours after a meal. This means that every 2 to 3 hours, protein synthesis can go down, but does that necessarily mean you do not have the amino acids in your bloodstream that are needed to build muscle and keep that metabolism rolling? No, not at all. But because they were able to take 2 to 3 hours and then say, hey, have a protein shake every 2 to 3 hours, a market was born, and that's why we were peddled supplements, we were peddled protein powders, protein bars, all this stuff that we should be having frequently to keep that furnace going, to prevent your body from going catabolic and wasting all your muscle in your workouts. All right, so really it doesn't make a big difference when it comes to that protein intake. You do not need it every 2 to 3 hours. Honestly, 4, 5, 6, 7, even 8 hours is fine. Otherwise, tell you what, I don't think we ever would have made it as a species if we could not have gone more than a couple hours without protein and falling apart. Guys, questions on this right now. I'm about to jump into the next component. Got my laptop over here. Oh man, I've got that little circle of death on a Mac where it just spins around, means there we go. All right, circle of death is gone, guys. Okay, so thermic effect of food. TEF, you might see this abbreviated. This is the idea that the more often that you eat, the more energy your body is going to break down. So when your body comes in through a steak, gulp, tastes great, it's got to break down into all these amino acids, and these amino acids are what's shuttled to your body and goes and signals the protein synthesis and anabolic pathways, so on and so forth. The idea here, the more often you eat, the more often your body is breaking down food. It's breaking down fats, it's breaking down carbohydrates, it's taking that steak that you had and just breaking it into the pieces that your body can use for energy. And it makes sense, right? The more often, the harder your body is working to break down these foods, the higher your thermic effect of food, the more calories you're going to burn throughout the day. Well, this is only half true. You see, it doesn't matter how often you eat versus how many calories you eat. What matters, that thermic effect of food, for example, if you had 6 meals and it were 2,000 calories throughout the day, or 2 meals for 6,000 calories throughout the day, that thermic effect of food is actually going to be the same. So it is not dependent, your thermic effect of food is not dependent based on how many meals that you've had. It's based on the number of calories. Your body's going to have to burn or go through the same process no matter what. So there is no additional benefit to eating smaller meals frequently to stoke that metabolism. And I know it's hard to hear that because we've all been pushed that lie, pushed that propaganda, that bullshit, but that's the way it is. So really what it means, well, meal frequency is more or less irrelevant. There are some benefits if you're looking to stabilize blood sugar or to, stay consistent with your day. But really the most important part when it comes to losing fat and building muscle is not how frequently that you eat or how infrequently. It's going to be how many calories you're consuming on a regular basis. It's going to be what is the breakdown of the protein, carbs, and fats of your diet. So don't get hung up on thinking, oh, I need to be one of those Tupperware carrying dweebs and bring all my food with me every single place that I go. Instead, find an eating style that fits you. For some people, that's 1 or 2 bigger meals per day. For others, that's 3 square meals and a snack. Imagine how simple dieting would be if we followed that still, right? And for others, yeah, it might be 5 or 6 times a day. But the biggest thing here, your calories have to be in line first. Your percentage of proteins, fats, and carbs are second, and meal frequency is way at the bottom of the list. So don't fall prey to that idea that you need to be eating every couple hours, otherwise you're going to end up, fat, sick, and weak. Guys, that is a myth. That is bullshit. Eat and find a way that fits your lifestyle and allows you to hit the calories that you need in order to build the body that you want. All right? So, guys, we haven't done one of these in a while, so feel free, ask some questions. Carol, you were here. Sam, you were here. Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate your support. Like I said, drop me a flex emoji, drop me a high five, or whatever the little buttons are on Facebook these days. Let me know what other questions that you have. If I don't get you in the next couple minutes, well, that's cool, but it means I'm just going to go drink more coffee. Be a little bit depressed because my Packers tanked last night.